everyone, Alexa here from the blog theduvalhomestead.com, where I share farm-to-table recipes and homemade natural living. And today I'm going to share with you how to make sourdough bagels. If you're new to the world of sourdough, you are probably excited to dive into making breads and pizza and biscuits, and if you're anything like me, you're thinking any bread product, how can I make a sourdough? So naturally, bagels fell on the list for me. And this recipe was actually not that hard to create. I based it off of my original bread recipe and just tweaked it a little bit. And of course, the process of making bagels was new to me, so I had to look up how to do that. It took a few tries to get right, and now I'm going to show you how to do it. And what I kind of do in my sourdough schedule is I will just pull my sourdough starter out every couple of days, and I'll just make a few pieces of dough that day. So I'll make a bread dough, I'll make a pizza dough, and I'll make a bagel dough or something like that. And then I'll just stick them in the fridge, and they're good for a few days. So that way, whenever I do want to cook it, I can just pull it right out. Okay, so without further ado, we're gonna get right into how to make sourdough bagels. Last night I started this recipe, and you're gonna start with a 3/4 cup of active sourdough starter. Now, if you are brand new to sourdough entirely, sourdough starter is flour and water, and it has been fermented over a period of time. Now, in order to make this recipe work properly, because you need a rise on the bagels, your sourdough starter needs to be active, and what that means is it should be bubbly. I fed mine the morning of, so yesterday morning I pulled it out of the fridge and fed it, and I fed it 1 cup flour and 3/4 cup water. That is the standard feeding for my sourdough starter. Basically, you can keep a sourdough starter at your house and leave it in the fridge until you want to cook with it, and then when you're ready to make something, you take it out and feed it, and then it is therefore active. It's kind of like using instant yeast in a recipe, only you don't use the yeast because the sourdough starter is powerful enough to make bread rise. I will leave a link below to instructions on how to make a sourdough starter. It's very easy. It just takes a couple of weeks to get it strong enough to make bread or bagels. So in a bowl, you're going to combine 3/4 cup sourdough starter that is fed and active. You'll see it's got some bubbles on it, it's pretty thick. That's how you know it's ready to go. 1 1/4 cup filtered water, 1 1/2 teaspoons of salt, 1 teaspoon of olive oil, and 2 tablespoons of honey. I always try to make sure my recipes are naturally sweetened whenever I can, and this is one of those times that the honey works out perfectly. Mix all of that with a fork. And then to that, add 4 cups of flour. Now you can do this in a mixing bowl with a dough hook and just let it run for a few minutes until the dough is formed. I usually like to do it that way, but today I just didn't feel like getting the mixer out, so I just used my hands. The dough will feel really sticky and really thick. Just keep kneading it, eventually it will come together. Then you want to cover the bowl in plastic and let it sit overnight. Loosely place the plastic over the bowl so that if the dough rises a lot, it has kind of room to grow. You do not need to do any lifts and folds or stretch and folds like you would do if you're making bread, so this is pretty easy. In the morning, you're going to take the dough. You will see in the morning that it will rise quite a bit. In the morning, you're going to punch the dough, which is my favorite part. Cut it into 6 equal pieces. First cut it down the center and then 3 triangles on each side. Use a knife to cut. Then you're going to place them on a parchment-lined baking tray. I'm going to add a little bit of flour to my hands here because the dough is just a little bit sticky. You can always just add flour to help out with the rolling. You want to roll it in your hands and then kind of pancake it, flatten it out a little bit, and then I just take my finger and poke right through the hole. And then you want to stretch the hole out in the middle because the dough will collapse in a little bit. Then take that tray and cover it with a tea towel or plastic and let it sit on your countertop for about an hour. Now, if you don't have a lot of time, the other option, or if your house is really cold, which mine is today, is you can put this in the oven if you have a really low temperature. In my case, I have something called Proof, which I just discovered not too long ago, and it is amazing for bread products. So I'm actually gonna just put this in the oven because I want this to go quickly. It's not too hot for the cloth or anything like that, so it's probably like 80 degrees, I'm not sure. After that hour, you'll see that your dough has risen quite a bit and it's really fluffy, so it's ready to go. So bring a large pot of water to a boil and add a tablespoon of sugar. What we're gonna do here is cook each bagel for 1 minute on each side and then return them to the parchment paper. There's a couple different things you can do with the bagels after they're done. This is my favorite. It's called Everything But the Bagel Seasoning. You can get it on Amazon or at a grocery store. It's basically got garlic and onion, sesame seed, Himalayan salt, and poppy seed. Kind of everything you need right here. So I'm gonna pour a lot of this into a bowl. So you're gonna dip the bagels in it after they come out of the water. I have 6 bagels total. I'm gonna boil 3 at a time. There's 1, 2, and you want to kind of make sure that they have enough room and they're not hitting each other. These are definitely hitting each other. There we go. About 1 to 2 minutes per side. Meanwhile, preheat your oven to 425 degrees. My bagels are a little bit big. Probably should have only done 2 in here, but that's all right. Just means that they got a really nice ferment. So another minute on those. So when these are done, you're gonna remove them and put them on a plate. Add a couple more. I'm gonna just do 2 this time. Continue this process of bagels in the water for 1 minute each side. And meanwhile, you're going to dip 1/2 side of the bagel into the seasoning, spread it around really nice, and return it to the baking sheet. Another option instead of the seasoning here is you could just do shredded cheese to make a cheesy bagel. It's so delicious. Now, one of my favorite parts about making bagels is that you can freeze the bagels really well. So after they come out of the oven, we're gonna eat some now, and then whatever we don't eat today, we could put them in the fridge, but I prefer to just throw them right in the freezer. So I'm gonna cut them in half first so that you can then toast them, and then or put them on the cast iron, and then when we want them in the morning, I just pull them out of the freezer and reheat them. So these are ready to go in the oven. I'm gonna put them in the oven at 425 for 20 minutes. You wanna cook them at 425 for about 20 minutes until they just start to get golden brown but not burnt. So your time might be a little different based on your oven, but for me it's usually about 20 minutes. Alright, well thank you so much for watching this video on how to make sourdough bagels. If you want some more sourdough recipes, you just got your starter started, I will leave a few links below. If you're brand new to my channel, I normally post farm-to-table recipes like sourdough and other from-scratch recipes and other homemade natural living, some DIYs that we do at our farmhouse, home decor, and things like that. I would really appreciate it if you subscribe to the channel and like this video. Thank you so much for stopping by the Duval Homestead.